Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. We're just days away from the new year, so we thought this is the perfect time to look back at some of the stories and moments that make Another View a program that you enjoy tuning into each and every week. Throughout 2018, there were many thought-provoking conversations that had us laughing one minute and pondering the situation the next. And then there were the feature stories that showcased some of the wonderful things going on in the African American community. So get ready to remember those meaningful moments as we bring you the best of Another View 2018. We'll be right back.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Welcome to Another View. We hope you've had a very Merry Christmas and are looking forward to the new year. If you're a regular listener of Another View, you probably already know that each December we take some time to look back at the people, moments, and stories that made us smile, think, and even challenged our ideals. So grab a cup of cocoa, relax, and enjoy as we revisit the best of Another View 2018. There is no question that a lot of brow-raising and disturbing things happened during the summer of 2018. Two men who decided to hold their business meeting at a Philadelphia Starbucks were arrested for trespassing. A racist tweet from Roseanne Barr resulted in her hit TV show being canceled, and President Trump uninvited the Philadelphia Eagles to the White House. Our June roundtable tackled all of these issues, but let's take a listen to what attorney Amos Jones, community activist Bill Thomas, and real estate professional William R. Brown had to say about the issue of NFL players taking a knee. President Trump has also been very vocal about his displeasure with the protests. Here's what he had to say.
Everyone in this arena tonight are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
So here's the question. In all of this, the meaning of taking a knee has been lost, which is about protesting police brutality, particularly against African American men. And it started by Colin Kaepernick. So, Amos, starting with you, why the diversion from the true meaning? What is this all about?
This is about control. This is about ratings. This is about an NFL that saw viewership decreasing markedly and the decision of the owners to take back their chattel and to put them into the shadows if they want to demonstrate any kind of political consciousness. But it really started when they barred dancing in the end zone and wanted to tamp down on unique black creativity. I always say that if we had waited for the other people to inform our cultural motifs, then they would have told Janet she couldn't dance, right. Martin he couldn't preach, right. And Michael he couldn't sing. And the fact of the matter is that's what started when we couldn't even celebrate in the end zone in our unique cultural ways in an entertainment environment. Right. So it makes perfect sense that they would go at this point and try to restore some control so that the viewers won't be made uncomfortable. And it's largely a white viewership base, and this is a racial thing.
Bill, the president says it's all about patriotism.
It's all about money and control. Everything is. And I'm so disappointed in all of this is that our players don't get it. If you want to take up an issue, you want to die on a hill, sure, you should stand up for the national anthem. The NBA already has these rules in place. They must. It's in their rules. I would have just shifted the story to some priority. Educating.
What do you mean?
I would have shifted it from the national anthem to issues that are really important to the black community.
Well, when Colin Kaepernick first took the knee, though, he didn't say he was doing it because he was disrespecting the flag.
I love this gentleman here so much. It just and
this
what he
gentleman
says.
Meaning Amos Jones.
Yeah, sure,
okay.
sure. He's not his name, but I'm just saying that the fact is we take on too much that's meaningless. This
Police
is not
brutality against black men is meaningless.
Yes, it is, because that's a local issue. That's a local issue. Let me explain what I'm saying.
Yes, please.
Police brutality is America. We've been beat, shot, hung, killed by police forever. That's a reality. To combat that, when I was growing up, our parents told us what we needed to do when we were confronted by police. Because you don't, you're going to get your butt whipped or killed. So I get
talk.
that. I understand all of that. But right now, in our 7 cities, in the ones that are populated by minorities, the mayor is black, the police chief is black, and this is still happening. This is still happening. So I can't control that. What I can control is control the story. They should have shifted it to something that's important to our communities. And standing for the national anthem and this Colin guy is just so frivolous. It's insanity.
Do you think
Let me finish.
Okay, finish.
Why don't we have a black ownership of a football team by these millionaires? Why can't they collectively get together and have the ownership of property and intellectual property and talent?
And open a credit union while you're at it, please.
Please.
Black businesses under President Obama, the percentage of Black Small Business Administration backed loans going to blacks went down to around 1%. It had been 8 under Bush. They rewrote these regulations and freeze out black businesses.
Right.
When you freeze out black businesses, you freeze out the black law firms that are going to bring the employment discrimination cases, not just for Kaepernick, who needs a good black lawyer,
Amen.
but for all these black people out here, educators, principals, veterans who are having their benefits snatched even by the government itself, and there's no capital to put into these cases.
Okay, so you brought up a couple of things, and I want to get William in here first, and then I'll come back to you, Amos. Bill says that the whole idea of protesting police brutality is not an important idea. Am I getting that correct?
I think
overall,
you got to list your priorities that you can deal with. You got to list your priorities.
Okay, and you're saying this is not one that's
at the even top of my list.
Okay. What about you, William?
Well, let's go back to what the original question was the point about the control, about the NFL, about taking a knee, okay? When we took a knee, the purpose of it was for the police brutality, and it was changed. The dynamic was changed, and here you added on to that's not important, and that's a very important situation. No, I did not say that.
I said it's not a priority.
It's not a priority.
If it's not a priority, it's not important.
A priority is the 7-year-old who got killed in Newport News, got his brains blown out in Newport News.
Right.
Or the 2-year-old that was shot in Newport News. Or the 8 or 9, 10 people that were shot because we don't have economic prosperities in our community. It's economics. Now, if they really want to do something, they could have taken it and changed the message.
But I guess my question
is... But they did change the message.
No, they didn't change anything. And police brutality is still going on today on black people and white people.
But that was the purpose of the kneel. It was not about the flag.
The purpose of the kneel is not going to affect any one of us at this sitting around this table today.
It is. We're talking about it.
I'm not talking about it. I think it's foolish to talk about it.
Well, I'm glad that we talk about it so that we can move to the real issues.
Thank you.
These celebrity events are very good at raising awareness. The problem with African Americans today, one of the problems is that we are completely reactive. In the real civil rights movement, we were proactive, and this is what I mean. Dr. King and all of his lieutenants, people like Fannie Lou Hamer, Adam Clayton Powell, they said up front in the 50s, we need a Civil Rights Act for accommodations and employment discrimination protections.
Policy.
We need a Voting Rights Act eventually so that we can vote and have political power, because political power is supposed to allocate economic resources like our former politicians used to understand, and some people today understand, but too few. And then 3, housing. We need open and fair housing, especially if we're trying to build wealth and compete with other people 100 years after slavery. Now, civil rights doesn't operate that way. Somebody gets shot somewhere or a policeman beats up somebody, which is a small minority of police. We have to be honest.
Yes.
Police are like employers and everyone else racist. It's about maybe 1 to 5% of the whites causing all the problems. It's a small minority, and just so happens that sometimes there's a gun involved, and we've got to address it. But it's no different from the denial of loans when you get into underwriting for your house or they give you a car because we know why, but not a house or a business loan. And so what we need to do is to stop just jumping up. Oh, because it's worthless.
Yeah.
Because and they can repossess it really fast. So they'll do that in a heartbeat. I mean, before they'll give you a loan on a house that costs less than the car.
Okay, so let me ask you guys, should sports be involved in any political discussion at all?
Absolutely.
Or should it stay in sports?
I think it needs to stay in sports because one of the most important aspects of it. Thank you. One of the most important aspects of it is that's what a lot of the people, maybe that are not as educated as everybody else, that's what they see. They see the sports. They see LeBron James. They see Kevin Durant. So what happens is that when they make a statement, then it allows us to be able to move forth on the statement, not just sitting back up here and just waiting for somebody to do something.
I see Andrew Young. I see people that get it. understand the vision and the policy that's needed to take us to the next nexus.
Okay,
I see him, what he did in Atlanta, and the way he thinks out of the box, and not some sports. You're just $1 million slave. You don't control anything. You don't control your destiny. The white man tell you to get up off your knees, you get up off your knees, or you don't get paid, because we don't own anything.
And we get
don't.
our advice from the wrong people.
Absolutely.
Many of these guys go broke after a few years. Why doesn't somebody tell them, William Brown, buy 5 condominiums in Washington, D.C. The first thing you do, have them managed, you'll never be poor again. You're 22 years old, buy 5 condominiums in a high rent area, you'll never be poor. But they give their money away to these managers. If TIAA CREF had to pay $40 million for ripping off professors, most of them white, some of them physicists, engineers, and finance professors. If TIAA CREF will rip off white professors and have to pay a $40 million fine, what do we think is happening to a 21-year-old football player from Detroit?
Right.
And his money. We have to reclaim our brains and really do this cooperative economics thing instead of just talking about it all the time reactively.
Okay.
Amos, you were right on part, man. You can take my place. And you're younger and look better than me.
You were complimentary.
No. Our issue is not what we're doing, it's what we're owning. If you want to get smart, we're getting ready to build 2 or 3 aircraft carriers in Newport News. $60 billion probably. You should be buying property in downtown Newport News today. That is going to be a 40-year economic uprise. If you have any money, invest it in Norfolk, in Park Place, in those areas that they're getting ready to knock down. And you will earn 100% of your money in 15 years. Get up off your knees. Don't even, I'm tired of it. Get up. God got to tell you how to do something. He gave you a brain. What they should have done is said, look, you're taking our rights away from us. We have the intellectual property to make this business work. If you don't sell us a franchise, then we're going to walk off the field, not kneel down. A quarterback who can't get a job came up with this little idea, and it worked out. But it isn't helping anybody. Our kids are still dying on the streets.
Well, it was a start.
It wasn't a start.
It was a start.
It's a joke.
And let's go back to what you said about the investing in the real estate, because both of y'all made that statement, and that's a very good statement. But how many people are going to be able to get a loan?
Well, I'm talking about the football players. No, I mean, I was specifically talking about these guys who get all this money,
They got it.
and they've been ill-advised. You know, remember what I love about what the Nation of Islam did?
Amen.
They helped. See, they're real conservative. We just need to own some things.
Right.
The nation, they have conservative values. And what they did, they got hold of Muhammad Ali and helped, along with the good wife, to make sure that he didn't get cheated like everybody else, these boxers and stuff. And he had a good head on his shoulders as well. But the fact of the matter is, we need to do, I'm talking specifically about the men with the capital.
Right.
See, what they have more than anything else, they got a platform, but they got the cash. Black people suffer from a lack of cash, and it's gotten worse in the last generation or so, because now we've been placed into these colleges that are 20 times more expensive than they were 50 years ago, and black people can't write checks for those tuition bills. So what happens is we get neutralized out of the process of reform. You can't get thrown in jail because you really need that job, because you can't even discharge the student loan in bankruptcy anymore.
Absolutely.
We've been put in a multiplicity of traps, and cash is the answer.
It is. And the Wall Street Journal just yesterday wrote an article. We have more jobs than people that are qualified to do the jobs.
Yes, I saw that.
And we have people that are graduating in these high schools today, some of them that are marching down those aisles with not one opportunity to get a job. They have no marketable skills whatsoever. Can't literally read or write. And I would say 50% of them can't. And they doggone sure don't qualify for these coding jobs. And so we're sitting up here worried about the police, the 1 or 2% that are bad actors, instead of going to where the real action is. Education, ownership, morals, and values. That's where you want to go.
Our phone line stayed lit up the entire show, with listeners wanting to participate in that robust discussion. If you'd like to hear the show in its entirety, you can log on to our website, anotherviewradio.org, scroll down to Archives, and click on the June 8th Roundtable Show. I'd like you to think back to when you were a child. What scared you? And what made you feel safe? These are the types of questions you can find in the interactive children's book series, The Holiday Boys. Our very own Lisa Godley spoke with Onika Daniel, mother of 3 and a domestic violence survivor, about creating teachable lessons within this engaging series.
Inspired by her sons who were born on Halloween and April Fool's Day, the Holiday Boys were created for children and parents to read and discuss important family issues. Onika Daniel decided to write the first book about helping a young child adjust to the new baby. Daniel started the series when her youngest son was born, but the desire to write had always been there.
I've always been a writer when I was a child and things like that, so I've always written things down and always been a very creative person. But life, sometimes the things that you love to do, you kind of set to the side.
Her second book delves into children learning to face their fears. In it, Daniel emphasizes the importance of young children having creative outlets as well as escapes. Each book is interactive, including questions and activities designed to engage young readers.
What I realized was that with my son now, he's 13, sometimes it's hard for him to express his feelings and his thoughts, especially since, he was a witness to some of the violence that I experienced. So with that being said, I said, you know what? Sometimes it's easier for kids to write things down. So let me include an interactive piece that will allow a conversation between a parent and a child. A lot of times children, if they're scared or maybe they don't know who they can talk to about a certain topic, sometimes it's easier for them to draw a picture, or sometimes it's easier for them to write something down or doodle, or use their imaginations. So that's basically the premise behind the interactive piece.
Daniel does not hesitate to share her story of domestic violence. It's her way of doing something for the greater good.
I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I was in an unhealthy relationship for 13 years. Initially, it started off as emotional, and then it gradually increased to mental and physical. Towards the end, it became very physical. Sometimes, and I'm not going to blame age on this, but sometimes when you're younger, you make excuses. You say, oh, well, he called me a name, so he's just having a bad day. Or he loves me because he doesn't want me to go out with my friends, ever. Or he's trying to tell me what I should wear, so that means he cares about me. These are controlling behaviors that are red flags, that things he may not be who he portrays himself to be. But I want women to know, women, men, and children, that there is help out there. You're not alone, it's not your fault, and you can be happy.
She now uses her gift, showcasing healthy families, through her writing.
We really want to teach lessons, and we also want to encourage reading. Reading is so important. In today's world, it's all about an iPhone, all about looking on your phone and scrolling and Facebook and Instagram. We want to take it back to where, you open up a book, you have a dialogue with someone.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
You can find the book series, The Holiday Boys, online at Amazon.com or their website, theholidayboys.com. In July of this year, we took a deeper dive into the arena of mental illness and its impact on the African American community. On this Another View on Health, we spoke to millennials determined to change the narrative from mental illness to mental wellness. According to the Mayo Clinic, mental illness is defined as a wide range of mental health conditions, disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. Examples of mental illness include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors. Now, many of us have mental health concerns from time to time, but when those concerns cause stress and affect our ability to function, that's when it becomes mental illness. African Americans are 20% more likely to experience mental health problems than the general population and are also more likely to experience factors that lead to mental illness, like poverty and violence. Our guests include licensed clinical psychologist, Dr. Angela Jones. Angela, how are you?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming back to be with us. We appreciate that. And Jordan Yowell, a sophomore at Savannah College of Art and Design and a former student with the Governor's School for the Arts and their Reframe the Shame project. How you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing great, Miss Barbara.
Oh, she called me Miss Barbara. I love it. And, of course, we welcome my co-host on Another View on Health, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Dr. Jones, I'm going to turn to you first. Why is it so hard for the African American community in particular to accept that the brain can get sick just like any other part of the body, and that mental illness is just that. It's an illness like any other illness a body could get.
Well, it all relates back to the mental health stigma. And these are negative views about people that are seeking mental health services. And so I believe that mental health issues have been considered a Caucasian problem in our community, and that is not accurate. When you are dealing with career stressors, economic stressors, maybe even cultural and political stressors in our environment, we are more likely to suffer from mental health symptoms. It's interesting, most recently in practice, my African American clients are being referred from the African American medical doctors locally. That's how they're coming to my office.
So they're being referred, they're not coming in on their own.
Yeah, look, they're being voluntold is what I call it. Now, the African American MDs in the area like, look, honey, I know you might not want to hear this, but you might want to go seek some help for your stress.
And some mental health disorders manifest themselves in a physical way.
Absolutely.
Also, right?
Absolutely.
Such as?
Well, you have depression. So oftentimes individuals will come to their medical professional and say, I'm feeling exhausted. I don't understand. Maybe my blood is low. I haven't gotten out of bed this week. My appetite has decreased. I'm only eating one meal a day. I can't sleep at night. And so they're coming to their medical professionals with these symptoms, and oftentimes the medical professionals are saying, well, it could be a medical issue, but it may be a psychological issue.
So what does an MD look for to rule out the fact that it's physical and so they need to go see a Dr. Jones?
People would come in with chest pain, breathing problems, and blood pressure elevations, that you look for a lot of variability in symptoms. When you see a lot of inconsistencies in what they feel and time frames they feel it, then you start kind of digging a little deeper and you find out when they feel it under periods of stress or, altercations with family. A lot of times people will ask me, well, why you need to know this. If I'm asking too many questions, I'm like, because I need to know you. If I don't understand you very well, I can't. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to help. Part of that's not so much to get in people's business, but to understand their background and the challenges they have, because that clues you in a lot of times to what may be a manifestation. Now, I think all of us as doctors, we take every situation seriously coming in. So we always look for the medical condition first, but if it doesn't look like that's playing out, if the test results are not as consistent or the story is not as consistent, then that's when you start saying, okay, then what are the other possibilities?
And also, to agree with Dr. Newby, we look at the duration and the intensity of what's happening. Some of the clients will come in and they'll say, well, when I went to Dr. such and such's office, I went in for a high blood pressure check, but I couldn't stop crying while I was there. And she became a little bit concerned about me. And so same thing with some individuals believe they're having a heart attack. And they'll say, oh, well, Dr. J, I've been to the ER 10 times in the past 6 months, and they keep telling me it's not a heart attack. And so when you start looking at the duration and intensity, it doesn't match what they're coming in for. That's another clue.
So, Dr. Angela, for someone who's never been to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, you have the Hollywood version of laying on the couch and telling your life story. What exactly happens when someone comes into your office to see you?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. I believe this is the answer that people don't understand about seeking treatment for mental health issues. Initially, I do what they call an intake. I am just getting background information on my client. I usually introduce myself, tell them a little bit about me. I'm finding out a little bit about you, tell them about the process of what therapy looks like, tell them about what a treatment plan looks like. And then at the end of the session, I allow my clients to hire me or fire me. And I always say that because I think it's important to make a good choice when you're choosing a psychologist or a therapist to go to. You need to feel connected. And so I give the power back to the client.
So you encourage them to ask you as many questions as you may be asking them. In other words, you're looking for a relationship between the two of you.
Yes. Now, I won't say that I allow them to ask me any questions, but I tell them a little bit about me to make them feel comfortable because again, when you're talking about in the African American community, there sometimes a barrier to treatment is a trust issue. And so it's very important that they trust the person that they're sitting in the room with.
Is there a need to also manage expectations in terms of when they're going to be better?
One of the issues in our community, and I have seen an increase in African Americans seeking treatment, but one of the issues is that they're seeking treatment at the later stages of their illness. So by the time they decide to come and see me, or by the time they're referred by their MD, they are in what I would consider like a crisis stage, or they may be headed towards inpatient at that point.
So they waited too long.
Right. And I think there's a misconception about what therapy is. You know,
okay.
if you're having some issues at work, if your sleep has changed, if your eating has changed, come on in at the early stages. And oftentimes research will show that 8 to 12 sessions of therapy is what most people find the best results.
The biggest obstacle we have is trying to convince people they need the help. That has been, I'm going to tell you, because I've been cussed out a few times, just even to hint that there may be an issue there. And people don't want to hear it. I mean, I guess it's the stigma of it is
Sure.
like, I'm crazy or this, that, and the other. And I've tried to say, no, you may have challenges that you may not know how to deal with. I said, my job is to identify that and try to help you at least see another possibility.
There's also this, particularly for older generations, and Jordan, I'm coming to you because we're going to talk about the younger generation, but this whole idea of we have to be strong. We can't give in to these small little feelings of depression because we've got to carry the family. We've got to do this. We've got to do that.
When we start talking about symptom relief, one of the issues in the African American community and also with males is that they're internalizing and they're stuffing. So if you do not go seek treatment, if you do not go to someone weekly to express how you're feeling, to get these feelings out, to find a outlet, all of that is building up. And it's going to come out some way, in some way, shape, or form. 60% of individuals in our community who are facing depression think that it's just a personal weakness. That's a big number, 60%. And I talk to my clients, my Black clients, and I say, we should not be wearing suffering as a badge of honor. It's not a badge of honor. And, sometimes we look at it as, oh, yeah, I can get through this. I'm going to push through this. Mm-hmm. Well, you've been attempting to do that for 10 years, and that's not working so well.
Exactly. And if anything, it's getting even worse.
Absolutely.
That's prime point right there.
A lot of times, particularly in the Black community, we'll say, I'm just going to take it to God in prayer. And we're not denigrating prayer because that is very, very important, but it's also important to seek the professional help.
Well, God wants you to be active in your life. You have to be an active agent in your own life.
Now, Jordan, you are a sophomore at SCAD, but you're also a Governor's School student.
Governor's School alum.
Absolutely. And there was an incident that happened at Governor's School where students became pretty intimately involved with mental illness. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I honestly believe that we all go through these things in life and we face those things on our own, but then you're in this community. So we're all in high school, but it's a select few of us that actually leave our school in the middle of the day to go to Governor's School. So then your circle gets even smaller and then you get broken up into departments. So you get really close with these people. I would say this process started sometime in 2014, actually. I remember I was really tired. I had this big backpack, so I took the elevator. We're not supposed to take the elevator, but the elevator actually started stopping on every single floor because, other kids were trying to take it. But one thing I noticed when the doors were open was just, in a sense, chaos. Not so much people running around, but just like emotion. People were crying, people were breathing heavy, and I was like, what has happened? And I finally get up to my floor and there's still nothing being said. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll ask around later. But to my surprise, the school immediately, they didn't want to just send it out in an email. They wanted the kids to be talked to by the people who cared for them, our mentors at the school. So a few moments later, everyone is gathered into one of our biggest rehearsal rooms. And they talked to us about how a student in the instrumental music department had completed suicide. I think it was the night before. And I know a lot of people were affected, not only outside of our department, but even if I'm theater, I would still take the bus with people from Suffolk who were in instrumental music or who are in musical theater. And then we have these crosses and we get to go see each other do our crafts. So I know like he was very talented and a lot of people were really sad to see his passing. One thing our head of our department, Steve Earle, was talking about after it happened was how tired he was in a sense, because not only was that had happened at that school, which we consider just this honestly heaven on earth, but inside his life himself, there had also been other millennials who had taken their own lives. And from the moment we got accepted into the program, he starts referring to us as theatrical warriors. He said, if anyone, I think we have a power to do something pretty amazing to take care of this issue. We don't have to try to conquer the world, but we can talk to the people here in Hampton Roads. And from that came the project we called Reframe the Shame.
And Reframe the Shame, describe it for us and tell us what you all did.
So Reframe the Shame was a partnership between Norfolk State University, East Virginia Medical School, and Centera Health. And Norfolk State, their the School of Social Work, they recorded these interviews for us. These people knew that we were going to take their stories and make adaptations of them. We were going to keep them anonymous, but we wanted to hear their plight of anxiety and depression because our goal was to erase the stigma of it. So they went in and they were recorded by the staff, and within a day of them completing their interviews, we got the transcripts and we were able to make a story out of everything they told us. And we were able to travel it to all these non-traditional settings in Hampton Roads. We did it at East Virginia Medical School. We did it at Norfolk State. We did it at, I think one time we just did it on the side of the road and kind of this little promenade. And I believe we went to ODU. And I tell people all the time, you can be in theater and your parents come and see you, and when the lights go down, they're like, oh, that was so cute, applause everywhere. But when we finished Reframe the Shame consistently every show, it was like people stayed in their seats for a little bit. Like they wanted to take what we said with them. Like it was just like nothing I'd ever done before.
What would they say to you after the show?
A lot of people honestly thought the stories were ours, like the cast members, because the characters had no names. So there was nothing you could judge upon. It was just like I could have been doing the adaptation of a white female. We were all just taking the words that we related to that felt the closest to us. A lot of them would, of course, open up about people in their own lives who had completed suicide. And that was difficult to hear. But to say that, wow, like I didn't know, because I think we had over like 20 interviews. But one thing that was similar between all of them was that people feel the same way. And I think that's really satisfying for them because originally they feel like alone in this situation. So I think just giving people that sense of being one of many instead of one alone, I think they really appreciated that.
So now that you're at SCAD, you're staying away from home, you're in the dorm, so forth. Do you and your peers talk about mental illness and deal with issues such as suicide and others?
Especially in the theater community, but even outside of that, I feel like it's just becoming more acceptable to talk about these things. So if people are on their Instagrams or they're talking, they're like, hey, I've dealt with anxiety, but I still do this. One of my favorite actors on Broadway recently did like a Broadway vlog, and almost every vlog she would end talking about how she felt about her body dysmorphia and things like that. And I was just like, wow, you think that people that accomplish so much can't go through things, but they do. And so we'll talk about that. We had someone who was bipolar who was in the show, and he was just like, I'm coming forward with you guys with this now. You know, I want you to know about it. So like, forgive me. And it was just like, yeah, you know, like you're a fantastic talent. Like, thank you for telling us that. You weren't obligated to, but he did. So I think it's definitely going up and getting better in the future.
Dr. Jones, is that healthy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I myself, I was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder at age 40. And after many years of practice and diagnosing people with attention deficit, here I am being diagnosed with it. Wow. And so one way of fighting stigma is to stand and be transparent about the things that we do. It doesn't matter of your race. It doesn't matter how many degrees you hold. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is. We're all impacted.
If you or someone you love is battling depression or struggling with thoughts of suicide, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. If you've never heard the term Black Angels, you're not alone. But once you learn their story, it's one you will not forget. It's the story of 300 Black nurses who stepped in after hundreds of white nurses walked out of the New York hospital designated to treat patients with tuberculosis. As our Lisa Godley found out, not only did these brave nurses care for the sick, but were responsible for helping find the cure for TB.
Virginia Allen was just 16 years old when she graduated high school and told her parents that she wanted to be a nurse.
I convinced them that I would be very happy to go to New York and live with my aunt, and they consented. My mother's sister was a registered nurse here on Staten Island, and that's how I got to Staten Island and started working at Seaview Hospital.
The year was 1947. Seaview Hospital was caring for 2,000 patients, and all of them had tuberculosis. After an intense training, Virginia came on board as a nurse's assistant.
I worked in the children's building. That was the newest building after the initial buildings were built. I enjoyed working with the children. They were like any other child, like any child at home, except they were in the hospital. And I learned how to braid hair, make beds. We read to the children, helped them with their homework because we had an on-site school for them. But I was too young to even understand the gravity of it.
While the nurses were black, the patients were a mixture of races, and there was no breaking the rules when it came to providing care in this environment.
When we were working with contagious patients or doing procedures with the patients, we wore masks and gloves and a gown and practiced sterile technique.
Virginia Allen says even with so many precautions in place, some of the nurses contracted TB and died.
It was a big pandemic. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was quite a contagious hospital.
Black Angels was the nickname given to these courageous nurses by their patients, but their contribution was more than just one of caregivers. These dedicated healthcare workers are now being recognized for the role they played in nursing science, work that led to finding the cure for tuberculosis.
I helped the nurses or doctors collect sputum from the patients and, of course, blood and stool samples. That was tested to find out if they were still actively positive or negative, or if their condition was improving.
When Denitra Hampton, who is also a nurse, heard Virginia Allen speak at a museum on Staten Island, she knew the story of the Black Angels was one that had to be captured on video and told to a broader audience.
I have had so many people, whether it's at the CNA level to the PhD level, none of them have heard of this story. And so now, having the opportunity to bring it to screen is going to be one of the most historical events in the profession. So it's an honor.
To help tell the story, Denitra not only reached out to the last 2 surviving Black Angels, but got to visit Virginia Allen at home. And why is that significant? Because Virginia now lives in one of the hospital's old nurses' dormitories that was renovated into apartments.
I have an emotional connection with this place. I just feel comfortable and at home. And I was telling some friends, they were admiring the grounds. These grounds have always looked the same way today as they did when I first came here in 1947. It's a beautiful campus, very well kept.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
To learn more about the Black Angels or to register for the next documentary screening, visit fornursesbynurses.org. That's FOR, nursesbynurses.org. Back in September, the Another View crew hit the road for a live radio broadcast on Virginia's Eastern Shore. It was in a large room at the Barrier Island Center, where our live audience learned so much of the history of the legendary Dewdrop Inn. The Dewdrop Inn recently celebrated 50 years as one of the oldest continuously owned and operated Black businesses on the Eastern Shore. It's a true treasure where African Americans could come socialize, eat a good meal, and listen to great music. Here to tell us about the Dewdrop Inn is Jane Cabarrus, the daughter of the founder of the Dewdrop Inn, Lloyd Giddens. Hello, you call you
Hi.
Mama Jane, don't
Mama
they?
Jane,
Hello,
yes.
Mama Jane. How are you? Joan Wilson, whose family supplied the jukebox. Very important.
Yes, very important.
How are you,
Got them
Joan?
all feeling good.
Absolutely. And Black Elvis joins us, performer who has his own corner at the Dewdrop Inn?
Just a whole lot of shaking going on.
Just
baby.
a whole lot of shaking going on. So thank you all so much for being here with us. And Mama Jane, I want to start with you because you're the youngest of 7 children. And this business has been in your family since your dad built this place in 1967.
Yeah.
How did you wind up being the one to continue it?
Well, I was that little outgoing girl that wanted to be under Daddy's wing. So I would go over with him. I learned how to shoot pool, and I learned how to treat people. Because one of his things was, I don't care who come in this door, he had greasy hands, dirty clothes, dressed up in a suit, you treat them all the same.
Absolutely.
So I was Daddy's little boot. I never understood why they called me that. Maybe because I was so skinny, I could fit into a boot.
So tell me about your father and why was that important to him? What was it about the Dewdrop Inn that he wanted to provide for the community?
Well, Daddy was a carpenter by trade with a 6th grade education. He always worked in the factories, and he had this idea that he wanted to be his own business owner. So his first attempt, he built a building, and during that time, it was in the 60s, he couldn't borrow $2,000 from the bank, so it deteriorated. Okay, Daddy didn't give up then. He made another attempt. And one of his white friends had a big old house. Daddy tore that building down, took the nails out very carefully, and he built his own building, the Dewdrop Inn.
Wow, and it is still standing today.
And it's still standing.
And you're still using it today.
And we're still using it.
That is fantastic. Joan, I want to bring you in this conversation because your family provided the jukebox. Now, we had to have the jukebox because you had to have the music.
Had to have the music. Yeah, my dad was Herman Edmonds. My father felt that the black people on the shore, they worked hard. They labored in the fields. They didn't have a lot to do in their times off from their labors. So he wanted to be able to supply the music so that the black people will have some enjoyment, somewhere to go and something to do and good music to listen to. It was all about the people. If someone walked into a Dewdrop Inn and they wanted a certain particular type of music or a record, my father would make sure that that was on that jukebox before he got out of there. And if he didn't have it, baby, what did you say that name of that was and who that's by? Next time I come, you're going to have it.
Now, was it all kinds of music? Was it just R&B? What was on there? Blues, everything?
R&B, gospel, blues. You know, and there was some music that we would dance to that we didn't realize that we were dancing to gospel until much later on in the years to come. But so therefore the black people were praising the Lord and they didn't even know that they were praising the Lord. And I can remember on the jukebox there was Merry Christmas by the Temptations.
Oh, yeah.
People loved it.
Yeah.
It stayed on there year round. Even in the month of August, people will dance to that. And it just had a certain serenity about it. And it just made the people feel good.
Wow. Mama Jane, tell me, what kind of memories do you have of the folks that would come in?
You could listen to their problems, number one. You had to be a good listener. You had to have patience because someone would come and take up all the time. So therefore, you had to be smooth enough to make that person feel welcome without letting the other person know that I'm moving on down the line. So I have to tell this because on a weekend, I only got 9 hours of sleep. My sisters and I, we would go to Dewdrop Inn, close up at 2 o'clock, get in the bed at 3 o'clock, get up 6 o'clock, and get ready to go to the hospital where we worked. And we also did private duty, so we worked 3 jobs.
So you were working full-time plus or working at the Dewdrop at that time. Wow.
Yes.
That was a lot.
Yes. It was a lot, but I learned a lot. That's why the Dewdrop is still standing. Because if we had not been under our parents' wing, because my mama, she would work in the fields, she would come home wash up, and she would peel potatoes. She would make hamburgers, not the patties like you do now. She would pick them chitlins and expect us to help her, and we didn't know how to do it. So it was just this family thing. Nobody got paid, of course. That's why we had to have the jobs. And it was a real good flow. And my 98-year-old aunt that you talk about, she's the last of 14 children. We don't have any other aunts or uncles living. And she would be right there. And she was the one that we could say anything to. She would get out there and she would dance with us, and she would give us the rope. So she wasn't really our aunt. She was like our sister.
Like your sister, almost.
She was like our sister. So she kept the place alive. So.
And your mom cooked.
Oh, yes. My mom cooked. When she wasn't in the field, she was doing domestic work like ironing and cleaning houses and things of that nature. She was a woman that didn't mind being nice and working. I would say 3 jobs also, because that's hard work now, because I can't cook. I might be certified, but it's still not the same as
the way that she would cook.
As the way that she would cook.
Absolutely.
So therefore, I feel like we have grown and we learned a lot from that. I do want to say that the Dewdrop wasn't always black, with black people.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Because Daddy had this thing about people. Daddy had white people to come in, and our beer man, Billy Sturgis' daddy, would come and sit on the stool, and they would have a great conversation. And we had other whites that lived down the road, and he would always come and say, "Give me a Coca-Cola," and and then we had Stewart sandwiches.
Stewart sandwiches. What is a Stewart sandwich?
A Stewart sandwich was a company that were pre-made sandwiches, and all you had to do is put them in this little machine and warm them like they do now.
Okay.
They just don't call it that.
They just don't call them Stewart sandwiches anymore.
No, they just they just don't call them that anymore.
Well, now I know that there was the jukebox and people danced to that music, but there was also live music. Was there not, Black Elvis?
What got me interested in playing there, I learned a while back before I even started playing that Arthur Big Boy Crudup played there, which wrote that song, That's All Right Mama, which was Elvis Presley's first hit. And
as a matter of fact, before you go any further, I think we have that song, don't we? Can we play a little bit of it?
Well, now that's all right, now, Mama. That's all right for you. That's all right, now, Mama. Any way you do, but that's all right. That's all right. That's all right now, Mama.
And that was Arthur Big Boy Crudup singing that song.
He
right
played
there.
there also.
And he played there.
Oh,
at the
yes.
Drop-In also. Okay, go ahead.
So I didn't know who he was during the time, and I become friends with his sons back in the day. Of course, we was dating 2 cousins at the time.
Uh-oh.
And his son was J.C., and I become good friends with him. And I used to see his dad around every now and then. I didn't understand who he was until later on. And I wasn't doing the Black Elvis thing then. So I said, man, I like what them guys doing. His sons were playing music. And I said, I like to play some music. And then I thought about it, and then I got into a gospel group. Then they broke up, and I said, what am I going to do now? And I was dating this girl that I didn't know she loved Elvis Presley music. And I used to... I mean, everybody got a little bit of Elvis
That's why
Presley.
you became Black Elvis?
That's why I became Black Elvis. Yes.
You know what? The power of a woman. What can I tell you?
Yes. And if you don't mind me saying, her name was Janice Webley during the time. And she said, sing that song, Love Me Tender. And I'm like, man, okay. And she said, I think you should imitate Elvis Presley. And I took a second look at her. I said, a black man doing Elvis Presley, nobody's going to buy that. And the more I thought about it, and I realized that a lot of people tune into Elvis Presley, which they may not told you during the time, but I found out everybody knew something about Elvis Presley. So as I thought about it, I said, okay, well, I'm not with the gospel group now. And the more I thought about it, I said, I should give it a shot. What I got to lose? Rest of it is history.
The rest of it's history. Yeah. That's fantastic. Good for you. The Dewdrop In is also being featured on tonight's episode of Curate. So be sure to tune in to WHRO TV 15 at 8:30 to learn even more about this wonderful Eastern Shore establishment known as Giddens Dewdrop In. Each year, Hampton Roads Pride brings popular performers to the main stage, and this year was no exception. Headlining Pride Fest 2018 was Empire star Jesse Smollett, a.k.a. Jamal Lyon. The talented actor and singer spoke with our Lisa Godley about his music, his busy life, and why he loves performing live.
You're so beautiful. Give the world a show.
Performing. To me, that's what it's all for. I don't mind the studio, but it's not one of my favorite places. I like creating, so that's when the studio is fun. But as far as being in the booth, the reason why I do enjoy that is because, to me, the final product and the light at the end of the tunnel for any of it is performing it live.
For Jesse Smollett, life is good. This talented singer and award-winning actor has spent the last few weeks on a world tour, which will bring him to Norfolk, Virginia at the end of June.
Going to Hampton Roads Pride and doing Essence Fest and doing all of this type of stuff, we've been all over the world the last 6 weeks, and to me, it's been the most beautiful exhaustion of my life, because that's what it's all for. You make it so that you can create it and bring it to the people and see their reaction and feel them and all of that stuff. And to me, that's the best part, absolutely.
Jesse has been singing and acting most of his life. As a child actor, he co-starred in films like The Mighty Ducks. But things really took off when he was cast as middle son Jamal Lyon in the hit television series Empire. Jesse has even moved into the director's chair, putting his special touch on episode 16 of Empire's 4th season, where his TV mom, Cookie, is reconnected with her mom.
You said that you wouldn't give up on me. I'm here right now wanting to know you.
You'd think singing, acting, and directing would force Jesse to slow down. Not even close. In the midst of it all, he continues to collaborate with a very talented troupe of siblings.
We literally sit back and look for ways to collaborate. Right now, Journey and I are working on a film that we're producing, and that'll be announced pretty soon, but it's a pretty incredible story, and we get to play brother and sister. I love my sibling. Like, I will do anything for or with my siblings, so there'll definitely be more of that from all different elements, from things that I'm producing for my little brother and producing with him to films with Journey and things with my older sister. We're always going to work together, always.
Among their most recent group projects is a cookbook that they've titled The Family Table.
Are you a foodie? I mean, do you cook?
I'm such a foodie. I'm such a foodie. I'm such a foodie. Yes, absolutely. My mama's from the 7th Ward, New Orleans.
Okay.
So it's kind of like we didn't really have a choice. Either you sink or swim. And we had to swim, so we definitely are cooks and in the kitchen and know how to throw down for sure.
And it's not just his family. Jesse loves people in general, which is evident in the causes he champions.
I care very, very deeply about the world. I care deeply. I don't know if anybody knows how deeply we go. I didn't announce it every single show. The tickets for the Summer of My Music tour, my proceeds will all be going to Flint Kids and the Black AIDS Institute and HRC. We're in such a place in the world right now. I wish that we would all be able to celebrate love a little bit more and step up and do our part just a little bit more. I do think that it's important for us all to acknowledge and be better, because the world is going crazy right now, if you ask me.
Too many guns on the streets, and my heart can't take it no.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
Jesse Smollett has been spending most of the month of December on tour and will continue touring in January. We hope you've enjoyed revisiting some of our favorite moments and stories from 2018. To listen to any of our past shows, you can log on to our website at anotherviewradio.org. And while you're there, please sign up for our eView newsletter, a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. For producer Lisa Godley and audio engineer Todd Washburn, I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll be back with you live next week to kick off an exciting year of thought-provoking discussions. So be sure to join us every Friday at noon. And thank you so very, very much for listening to Another View.